ready for a spooky journey on Creepy Loop? We've got a scary story about a person facing a creepy demon. Subscribe to our channel for more thrilling tales. Being stuck inside your own body felt really terrible, like those stories you hear about people in comas or those who can't move when they're sleeping. But for me, it wasn't an accident or some kind of sickness. It was like being in a real prison. My body wasn't really mine. It was more like a scary place where I couldn't do anything. I couldn't talk, control anything, or make any choices. It was like I was a prisoner, and there was this strange creature in charge of everything. This creature was not from our world. I couldn't remember how long I'd been trapped like this. It felt like a never-ending nightmare. I had no say in what happened. I was just along for the ride while this creature did whatever it wanted with my body. I couldn't even remember if I used to be a normal person with feelings and thoughts. Maybe the creature kept that part of me for itself. I wished I could learn more about what was happening to me, maybe find a way back home. But every time I tried to understand, I felt even more stuck. It was like the creature had complete control over me from the very beginning, even before I could understand anything. One day, I woke up to my body moving on its own, and it scared me so much. I went through weeks of not knowing what was going on. The creature could talk to me in my mind, like it had some kind of mind-reading power. But it never answered my questions about why this was happening or how I could stop it. The first thing it said to me was, "You're late." It was a strange thing to say because I had been in this body since I was born. I didn't understand what I was late for. Then it mentioned a surgery that was about to happen, and I was told not to miss it. The whole situation was confusing and terrifying, and I just wanted to go back to being myself again. I remember the voice changing as it spoke. It sounded like lots of people talking at the same time, but getting louder and softer. It made me super scared, like I couldn't breathe. I tried to scream for help, but I couldn't even feel my chest or throat to find my voice. I freaked out like in the movies, waving my arms around and jerking my body, but it felt like I was just watching myself in a movie. After a while, I realized I was looking down at myself on a table, wearing a gown with a hole in the middle, showing my stomach. Another wave of panic hit me, even though I couldn't really feel it. That's just the best way I can explain it. Then, the voices spoke again. "Yes, that's it. You can feel. You've kept me waiting." Such an ungracious host. It was the scariest nightmare I'd ever had at that time, and the worst part was about to happen. Someone was putting a mask on my face for anesthesia, and a nurse with a comforting voice told me to relax and count backward from 10. My eyes started closing, and in my head, I begged for someone to save me. "Don't worry. Even though your eyes are closed, you'll know everything that's happening. Now that you've joined me, I'll make sure you pay attention." That creepy voice made me wonder what was going on and what was about to happen to me. "It's been 6 seconds, and you're wide awake. How exciting. Please, keep squirming inside while we watch this together." It let out a mean laugh when it finished talking, and then I felt a really cold knife touch my skin just above my belly button. I got super scared again, but this time it was different. I felt something weird, pain. The knife went across my stomach, making a big cut deep enough for hands to go inside. It hurt a lot, like nothing I ever felt before. But I would have been happy if it stopped there. "Oh, come now, they barely scratched you." My eyes were closed tight, and it seemed like the medicine to make me not feel pain didn't work on me. Maybe because I was supposed to be dreaming. When the thing in my mind realized this, it did something I hadn't even had time to be scared of. It opened one of my eyes. A hand and a glove started digging in the hole they made in my stomach, using a tool to open it up. My mind felt really sick, and I went from asking for help to crying. The voices came back. "Oh, you're no fun. Can't you put up more of a fight before wishing for death? It's just an appendix." My appendix. That's what they were taking out. I never had any problems with it before. The doctors talked to each other, and I heard them clanging instruments together as they got ready for the procedure. The pain got even worse, and I felt something inside me being cut, making me want to throw up, which would have been a relief. They took out my appendix, a part that didn't seem important, but they did it without asking me or even telling me. My mind was spinning with too many questions as I saw the doctors holding my appendix through the small opening in my left eye. Then, my eye closed again, and the pain started to go away. The voice spoke again, saying I should consider myself lucky that removing my appendix was all it took to bring me to it. The voice sounded like a snake hissing on the last word. I felt really heavy, and I fell into darkness that I knew I didn't cause. "Come back soon." "I'll be here," the voice said as I hoped the nightmare was over. I woke up, not knowing when, with a scream and fast breathing. I reached out for something to make sure I was awake. It was dark, not in a bed or a room, but like I was floating. Was I still asleep? Another nightmare? But I screamed, and I heard it for real inside my chest. What you heard was you trying to scream from your mind to your body. But it didn't work, the voice explained. No way, that voice. This can't be happening again. Trying to stay somewhat calm, I realized I wasn't really asleep. I was wide awake, even though everything was dark because my eyes were closed. The voice kept talking. "And since I heard you try to talk, that means you're all mine. Come on, speak." Speak? I couldn't even feel my own nose, let alone talk. "Oh, you won't actually talk. It'll be heard in your mind, just between us." I was so confused. How could it hear me when I wasn't really talking to it? Then it hit me, this thing could hear my thoughts. Right, it confirmed. Did that mean I couldn't talk to it directly? I was awake and should be able to think words, but it felt like something was blocking me. After a bit, I managed to speak. "Hello." My own voice, I heard it again after what felt like forever. It was a familiar sound that I held on to, even if hearing it was kind of strange. "And the last horse crosses the finish line. You've been hard to wait on," the voice said, sounding less scary, almost amused. I asked it, "What is this?" "This is skydiving." My thoughts went from feeling relieved to being really confused. Was this some kind of joke that I didn't get? Right after it said skydiving, I started feeling wind on my face, and I heard a loud roar all around me. My eyes slowly opened, not by my own doing. The bright sun shone on me, but my eyes didn't even blink as they focused on the huge scenery. I started feeling more in my body, the wind was strong on my face and hands, and it messed up my hair. I was falling super fast, but it felt like I wasn't moving at all. I could feel my heart beating, for real, and I knew I was awake without a doubt. This was real. At the same time, I realized I woke up again without knowing what was going on, and I tried to figure it out. I knew a bit about skydiving, like the first jump usually has a trained person connected to the new jumper by a harness. But when I remembered this, I saw there was no one strapped to me, just a bag on my back. "Let's hope this parachute works well." "For your sake," the voice teased, laughing like crazy. Did I jump before without knowing? I had a procedure I didn't know I needed, so how can I be sure this wasn't the same? "What's happening?" I asked, feeling weird because I was asking myself a question I shouldn't know the answer to. "Very good," the voice said excitedly. "We're in the middle of a jump, 50,000 feet in the air, on your first skydiving adventure. And guess what? No trained jumper with you. Isn't that exciting?" I definitely didn't want to answer that. Now, I really hoped the parachute opened properly, but I never thought I'd have a reason to wish for that before. How did I get here? What's happening to me? I asked. We went on a regular trip to go skydiving, but the pilot and the jump instructor wanted to jump from a height I thought was way too low. So, once in the air, should I say we, took care of them and raised the plane a bit for a much bigger thrill. Think of it as a reward for making you watch your own appendix removal. My mind felt sick again, thinking I killed someone, maybe 2 people. How did I do that? What happened to the plane? Where was I in the first place? All I knew was I was tens of thousands of feet in the air, falling to the ground. As for the rest of your questions, we can talk about it once we land, if you survive, the voice said. The voice had that weird hiss again, mixed with lots of voices becoming one. I could still feel my heart racing, and I was super focused on aiming for the ground, like I knew what I was doing. The fall felt like it took forever, maybe around 10 minutes or so. Once I knew the parachute worked fine, I could kinda enjoy the experience. The thing in my body also seemed kinda happy, which made me worried. Then I realized I could feel this thing like it was my roommate in a small apartment, and we never left. The landing wasn't great, but I didn't get hurt. Then, the voice said something that bummed me out. You'll only feel what I let you feel. Your pain and pleasure belong to me. That is again. I might be alive, but something was clearly wrong with me. Did I have a breakdown or something? I was never the happiest person, but I wouldn't say I was super sad. Well, maybe I was ignoring it on purpose. Just as I was thinking about this, my mind went black instantly. Later, I felt that awake feeling again and spoke up. Can we please stop turning my brain off and on like a light switch? The voice responded, it seems like it's time for some explanation. Your switch is also for me to control. Control? What is this? And who the heck are you? During this talk that just made me feel more messed up, I noticed my eyes were closed again, and I couldn't feel anything. It was like my mind was just floating in the dark. I see you do have some fight in you, all the voices seem to approve. I am you. Well, I am you as the world will know you from now on. From now on? What do you mean? I'm the only me. The same me that will be from now on. The voice laughed sincerely, making it sound more like a high-pitched girl laugh. It gave me a weird feeling, like whatever this was could feel what I felt and knew when I was scared. But I couldn't hide it, I just wanted answers. Yourself has been taken over by me. You don't have a mental problem or 2 personalities. I am completely separate from you, but now I am you completely. Wait, like some kind of psychic who controls people's minds. This isn't a movie, what is this for real? You humans are quick to make up explanations for things you don't get, and you love to talk about movies and books. The voices got serious and sent a little pain down my spine. My spine? Did it make me feel that for emphasis? Whatever this was, it meant business, and it wanted me to understand that. I gathered up as much courage as I could and kept talking, even though I had no idea where my body was at the time. So, if you're me, where am I? That's a really good question, the voices said happily. You're still in the same place you've always been, your mind in your own body. But now, I control your body. I can use or stop all your senses like seeing, hearing, and touching whenever I want. The voices spoke calmly and straight to the point. It made me uneasy, thinking it could sound like a normal chat for whatever was in my mind. I'm not completely getting it yet. So, you're in my body, and you claim to be me. Are you like a part of my mind or something different? The voices let out a low, creepy chuckle, coming from where its diaphragm would be if it had one. It answered, I think you know the answer. For the 3rd time since meeting this thing, I felt like I might throw up just from thinking about it. I didn't know it was something else. It couldn't be my own mind turning against me. Sure, mental issues ran in my family, and I'd been away from them for years, so losing it wouldn't be a total shock. But this thing felt separate from me. So then, what are you? Your kind has called me lots of things, stuff in stories and myths, things linked to disease and panic. But I've never been called anything before you. How can that be? And before who? Before humans? You're not the slowest human I've taken over. You've done this before? Taken over someone's body? Many times. Well, if you're what you say and based on what I know about religion, can I guess you're like a demon or something? That's the word most people use. If you want to call me that, then sure, it said. Its voice stayed steady, a low hum of many voices speaking together. If I wasn't so scared, I might find it amazing. Maybe I did, but didn't want to admit it. So you control my body, and you can turn off my mind whenever you want. But you're letting me ask all these questions? Yep. Why? It's one of the most fun parts of taking over you creatures. Your curiosity is only beaten by your fear of the truth. And, trust me, I have a lot of truth. Is this all some kind of game to you? I wouldn't call it a game. A game means competition. Here, there's none. But the emotions you humans feel have led to some of the most entertaining fun I could enjoy. Only humans have evolved to feel these things, not like the other creatures you live with. The voice purposely sounded more like a man, maybe trying to scare me or get the fun it wanted from me. Did that mean this being feeds on people's emotions? It sounds like what demons are said to do in our religions. So, all you get from this is fun? Amusement? By taking over humans and enjoying their emotions? Enjoying, the voices burst out, sounding both male and female, like they were disgusted. Like some kind of parasite? No way. I don't feed on you lowly creatures. I don't feed at all. But the pure amusement is the main reason for what I do. So you don't eat? Not even when you're in a living body? Nope. I can keep any body I'm in going. But I can destroy it just as easily. And you're only doing all this for fun? Taking over bodies and making them go through scary stuff? That's just wrong. I said that to make the thing feel disgusted with what it was doing, to realize it was doing something bad. I don't know why I tried to appeal to the humanity of something that wasn't human, but it was clearly smart. Maybe it understood how people feel. The voices turned more female, starting with a soft sneer before turning into a scary shriek. That's what it would feel like if I cared what you thought. That voice was the scariest one so far. My mind wanted to flinch, but I had nowhere to go. I was stuck with this fear and whatever would happen next. Inside, I kept asking why. Why me? Why this? The demon, as I'm calling it, felt that and answered. Don't think of yourself as some chosen servant. I took over you because you didn't have the will to resist. My will? Yep. You're a 25-year-old guy who didn't make it as a law student, doesn't believe in anything, not the world, not a god. You barely even believed in the law you studied, and your dad forced you into that. By the way, you haven't talked to your dad for 6 years. You work a job that doesn't appreciate you much, with no sign of getting promoted, right across from a fancy law firm. Your big self-hate made it too easy for me to get in while you slept and dreamed of a better life. You came to me while I was sleeping, when the human spirit is closest to the veil, second only to the cycle of life and death. And then you just start scaring people? If that's what you want to call it. It's also a chance to teach you things your kind doesn't understand. A favor we do before our scaring is done. Because you're a super smart, really old demon who picks on weaker creatures. I'm not super smart, but I know more than you. But if this favor you give us is the truth, why don't we humans know it? We've been fighting over what's true for thousands of years, and you say you give it to us, but the world is still split. The voice chuckled lowly, clearly amused by something it was about to say. It gave me another shiver before continuing. I imagined swallowing hard, getting ready for its next words. The most amusing thing is, the voice changed from low and manly to high-pitched and playful like a choir of kids. You've been given the truth, and you won't believe it. Those words stabbed through me, and suddenly the irony was crystal clear. We humans don't like being told things that go against what we think is right. The fights between religions have been going on for centuries, and the same arguments are still there. So, what is the truth? Did I hear it? Who else knows? There were people who found out the truth and lived. But they went kind of crazy and told everyone the voices told them the real stuff about life. Can you guess what happened to them? They got called crazy or heretics. The reality of this hit me like a pile of rocks, or maybe a jeep. What it said had to be true. It was clear everywhere in the world. If you didn't believe what everyone else believed in your area, you'd get shunned or worse. Was that the demon's plan? To watch humans kick out their own over ideas, even if those ideas were true? Bad. Another word used to connect my kind with. But I really don't care about your ideas of what's right or wrong. Wait. Did you just say you're kind? There are more of you. Yep. The voice came in loudly, like all the voices wanted to show their separate but together presence. I hadn't thought about that before. I was too focused on the thing in my body to think about others around me. This could be happening to someone else at the same time as me. I might have met one of these things before. Would I have known? The demon talked again. Yep, that's usually the tough part to swallow before the really big one. But we'll get there eventually. I'm not the only one like me. We've been around since the beginning. Sadly, like you, we don't know how we got here. Only what's after. I had to take a moment to understand all of that. Beyond? Like after death? Yep. The demon's voice went back to what I'd call normal when explaining this. A welcome change, but fear still held me tight. Curious? Well, I stuttered, which was strange to think about being inside my mind. It felt so clear, but I hesitated. Was that the demon's doing? How much did I really want to know? Would I be allowed to live after this? And if I did, would I tell anyone, even if I knew they wouldn't believe me? What would happen if I knew? It felt like a clever question, even though I asked it while shaking in my metaphysical boots. That's not your concern. But I can say it won't make any difference to me whether you know or not. Your fate is the same. All the calm I managed to keep during this talk failed me in that moment. My fate is the same. It already decided what it wanted to do with me. Does that mean I'll live, or will I just stop existing? Since it doesn't matter anyway. Alright. Tell me. As expected, that deep, spooky chuckle rumbled through me. All the voices enjoyed my fear, exactly what it wanted. But now might not be the best time to wonder. I still hadn't opened my eyes, and I had no clue what my body was doing. In the same harmony, the demon's voice got so low I could hardly hear it, yet I clearly understood what it said. Death is void. I stopped for a moment and thought about it. Void? Emptiness? Nothing? That's right. The demon's voice slid across the words with pleasure, as if trying to charm me with a low, sultry voice. I managed to ask more questions. So, heaven and hell? It went back to normal, but with a sly smugness. Now that, you humans, weren't too far off on. You see, void does mean there's nothing. But nothing can't be nothing without something. Your consciousness stays, floating, in a place of pure darkness or bright light. Some of your kind must have learned that truth early in your history, spread it, and it turned into the ideas you call heaven and hell. That information was somehow comforting. Knowing there's a place after this life that's nice, even if it's just a light where your mind floats. But that raised another question. So your mind floats in this place forever? Like that's it? The voice became more reassuring, as if trying to comfort me or ease my mind. You know the law that says energy can't be created or destroyed, right? Reincarnation? Another idea you guys were close on. Your consciousness, at that point, turns into what you call your soul. It stays in either light or darkness until it's time to start a new life and begin again. This information came to me as if I'd always known it but never had real confirmation. The amount of knowledge was more than overwhelming but also kind of exciting. I was learning the truths about life that people only talked about and were sometimes called crazy for believing. I, however, had no intention of being seen as crazy. Knowing was enough for me. Hopefully, the demon's decision for me reflects that. However, the demon said with a sinister tone that nearly shattered my previously optimistic view. The soul could go elsewhere. With that, its voice growled and whispered, and I couldn't tell its gender anymore. Then it hit me, the voices. Why were there so many voices speaking for this one entity? Could they be the souls it kept? In that moment, I made the most horrifying conclusion, and in that same eerie, visceral voice, the demon encouraged me. Go on. I tried to fight it, the panic, the desperation, the fear for my life and soul. I pleaded like someone innocent on death row, but I kept it together. I'm next. The demon spoke quickly and sharply, like the drawing of a blade to the throat. Yes. The answer wasn't as hard to hear as the initial realization, but it still hurt. Pain. It wanted me to feel that. A choke in my throat. A cough I couldn't get out. The taste of metal. Taste. I could feel my body. That development made my fear reach new heights. I felt like my mind was breaking, trying to escape the upcoming madness. I tried to tear myself from my body in a feeble attempt, and the demon unleashed a guttural laugh with more voices than I had heard so far. I wanted to pray, but there was no God to hear me. The demon, however, heard my cries, and in every voice I couldn't have imagined it possessed, it wailed. I am the only God that has ever been. It wanted to scare me, and I couldn't help but react. I had never been more terrified in my entire life up to this point. Previous attempts at pleading failed, but now I had control of my mind and could express my desperation. Bargaining with this monster didn't seem likely, but with nothing to lose, there was no risk to the reward. You really want my soul? Is there no way I can get out of this? I want any soul. You were merely whom I came across next, the demon said with a voice I imagined having a forked tongue. But my soul must be so unsatisfying. You said yourself, self-loathing failure, and all that. You couldn't want dash. My wants are not to be concerned by such an insignificant being. My prey, no less. Know your place and accept it, mortal. It almost sounded like the demon was getting annoyed. Testing it further might only speed up my demise. I had to be smarter, maybe even more agreeable. Perhaps if I settled for being sent to the void, it would consider saving me for later, giving me a chance to be recycled into a new life. It was either that or becoming part of this thing for eternity. A fate, I imagine, was worse than 1,000 voids. The demon pondered aloud. You would wish to be cast to the void rather than be one of my collection. I'm hurt. I shivered. My spine felt like ice water was pumping through it, almost as if I was already dead. I knew I had to follow up on the demon's keen perception to have a chance. Yes. Maybe you would allow me the chance to be reincarnated into a better life. A more satisfying life for your appetite. Continue to refer to my whims as a means of nourishment, and I will rip your soul from you here, the demon said with a voice like distant rolling thunder. I had to elaborate to make it seem more in its favor. I just mean, a being like yourself deserves souls of greater value. Mine is a sham. A waste of a life. You wouldn't want a spotty collection, would you? The quality of life does not change the quality of a soul. And you would do well not to try and appeal to any sense of pride you think I have. For I possess none. Although, the demon's voice changed from a harmony of masculine tenor voices to whispering children, as if far off in a haunted wood. That last word lingered in my mind like an echo. Then it continued in the same whisper. I have never given anyone the chance to bargain with me. An interesting turn on my part. Perhaps I had almost grown bored with the ramblings of desperate victims and saw something more. It paused for a seemingly purposeful dramatic effect. "Intriguing in you, Anne?" I asked, wondering if that was too brash a way to respond. "And perhaps I would be interested to see where a soul like yours ends up after being given life anew. And I trust you would be able to find me when you wanted to again. After having met you now, yes. It would be effortless. Then maybe we can make a compromise." I remember thinking about how much I was pressing my luck with such an unapologetically evil being, but I was going for broke and hoping for the best. "Go on," it insisted in an array of voices, both adolescent and motherly. This being knew how to truly frighten me, and I had yet to get used to it. "Let me live out my days as ordinary. Then I'll die, go to the void, and you can wait for me to recycle into a new life. And since you already know my soul, you could enter it as early as birth, right?" "Correct." "Perceptive of you." I knew how that sounded. Sacrificing an innocent, newborn child to ensure my life now, even though I could get hit by a bus tomorrow and die, making this whole bargain a waste. It was evil in its own, human way. I was desperate. I had to say something to get a deal, even if it meant the sacrifice of a child. The demon continued before I formulated a response. "But I cannot allow you to live." Again, that low, thunderous voice, more feminine this time. Suddenly, my eyes shot open to reveal myself standing in my bathroom, unnaturally still, in front of the mirror. It occurred to me that whatever came next, I was going to be there to watch. Sick. What is this? My mind actually stuttered. The demon allowed my mind to express, in a way my body would have, overt terror. "This is the end for you. However, given your valiant effort at bargaining with me, I will grant you a compromise," it said with a comforting voice, more masculine with the tone of a British accent. "A compromise which will waver in my favor, of course, but you will keep your soul. For now." I could have cried, I was so relieved. Staring into the mirror, wishing my body to respond to this news in an obvious way, it gave me nothing. Just a blank, wide-eyed, emotionless stare. "That's very gracious of you. But how will it be to your advantage if you don't take my soul for yourself?" I asked, even though I knew the answer was going to be revealed very soon. "Oh," it said with an eager slyness, "we're going to watch you die, of course. I can at least give myself a show before bidding you farewell." I was almost more shocked by the fact that I considered that being fair for a split second, before realizing none of this was fair at all. This was my body, my mind, my life, and this demon gets to decide what to do with it. Fair was not the word, but it was the closest thing to it. I dared to ask. How? My mind ached for asking, but the suspense was just as deadly as whatever it had planned for me. The demon let out a howling laugh of more voices than I could discern. In addition to the suspense, that laugh could have killed me on the spot, and it would have made sense. It pierced me like a knife, heated to 1,000 degrees. In this same voice the demon exclaimed, "And ruin all the fun? The look on your face will be priceless." Of course, I'm not going to tell you. Again, the word fair came to mind. Evidence that I had completely lost it. The demon came in again. "Farewell, human. Till we next meet in another life. Oh, and a thank you would be appreciated, as my generosity does come scarce." Looking into my own eyes in the messy bathroom, I started to say thank you. I felt kind of grateful that the demon didn't take my soul for itself. It didn't have to be nice, but it seemed to want to have more fun with me. Before I could finish saying thank you, something strange happened. A warm feeling spread all over my body. It was weird and familiar at the same time. I could feel everything, from the hair on my head to my toes on the cold floor. It was my body. But just as I was happy to feel again, I realized that pain was on the way. Even though my senses were back, I still couldn't move a muscle. Then, I felt something else. It was like I was being watched, but more intense. I sensed that whatever was watching me was smiling. At first, I was confused, but then I understood. The demon was really excited and wanted me to feel it. When I realized this, my hand shot up from its slumped position and smacked my own face. It stung, and my nose hurt a lot. It was definitely broken. Now that the feeling in my body was mine again, I heard my own voice cry out in pain for the first time in what felt like a long time. The demon stayed quiet. With my hand still on my face, my fingers curled in and dug into my forehead and cheek, almost like they had a mind of their own. All of my fingers went into my skin easily, and I cried out even more from the burning pain. I felt blood running down my face, and my hand slowly started pulling. I kept staring into the mirror as my hand tore away the skin from the base of my hairline, over my nose, and ripping like a tight elastic. It was scary hearing my skin snap apart over my own screams. But even with all the horror in my mind, feeling the demon's presence in that widening smile was worse. This is what it had been waiting for. Skin was hanging onto my face like it was trying to save itself, and my eyes looked even wider without the skin covering them, with the exposed red tissue showing. I kept screaming in pain, but my body, face, and eyes were stuck in a frozen, motionless trance. The demon gave one of its all too familiar, nasty chuckles in approval before continuing my torment. Both of my hands, a shock, now both of my hands had turned against me, reached for my face again, forcing their way into my mouth. This showed that fear knew no bounds as I screamed louder from both pain and dread of what was to come. My right hand, the stronger one, gripped my bottom jaw too tight, while my left draped over my head to grip against my top row of teeth. I don't know if at this point I was pleading with the demon or out loud to anyone who would listen, but the demon continued to laugh. My arms tensed and started to separate. I was so tired from panic and fear that I would have passed out if I was in control. I wished for it, even though I knew it was hopeless. My hands pulled like machines without stopping, even with so much resistance, and made a sound I knew was my jaw separating from my skull. The pain spread from my face to the bottom of my stomach, making me feel sick as I stared at myself being hurt by my own two hands. My arms gave a sharp jerk to their pulling, extending my face far beyond its limits. My jaw, the skin on my face, the muscles beneath, all tore and split apart in a noise I could only compare to a crocodile clamping on the leg of a wildebeest and ripping violently. The demon stopped its idle snickering for a booming exclamation of approval. Children laughed in mockery while I begged for instant death. My left hand released its grip on my head and returned to my side, blood dripping from my fingers. Before I could imagine what was next for my torture, my right hand slung away from me, still clutching my jaw, and completed its removal from my head. With skin stretching and snapping away, my jaw was carelessly tossed into the sink, almost as if it was garbage. The mirror now showed me mangled, morbidly deformed, my blood pouring from beneath my head and my tongue dangling with no safe enclosure. My screams had become a helpless gurgle of blood and foam escaping the hole under my head. I could feel myself drowning in blood, but still, I stood, staring into my own doomed eyes. I prayed we were done, but I knew better than to be so foolish. The next wave of horror came over me as my head began to tilt back, far enough to see the ceiling and out of view of the mirror. Would my next trail be to my unseeing eyes? Again, I had no time to be grateful before my body made further choices I had no say in. My head jerked forward and slammed into the edge of the counter, with a crack like lightning without the thunder. My head then lifted from the sizable chunk missing from the counter, causing more copious amounts of blood to expel from my forehead and stain the entire sink. The force from the impact was clearly unnatural. The demon needed it to be and willed my body to meet superhuman capacity to damage it. My eyes returned to the mirror, taking in the horror, still growing. The impact from my head crashing into the bathroom sink caused a big cut in my head, big enough to dig inside. Even though I couldn't see it, I knew my skull must have broken a lot, and I waited for another forceful hit against the hard surface. To my immediate dismay, instead of returning my face to the sink, my hands crept back up into the newly made hole in my forehead. Still trying to scream louder, even though failing, my hands dug through the separated skin to make their way to my broken skull. The realization of what was about to come took me further into this already scary horror and buried me deeper. Similar to how my hands pulled my jaw apart, they proceeded to do the same with the hole in my head. I couldn't tell what was louder, my screaming, my head literally opening up, or the demon's incessant laughter. My skin, again, fought against my arms pulling, but was no match against this unholy strength. It gave way and exposed what my skull's sole purpose was to protect. Then, while I stared at my unrecognizable self, the demon spoke in what seemed like an hour. Scrambled, or sunny side up. The laugh that accompanied this crude line was so genuine, so unmistakably joyous that it made me sick. Physically sick. Then terror, again redefined, struck. A combination of blood, screams, and vomit expelled from me in uncontrollable waves as my hands made contact with my brain. My eyes had betrayed me in such a way I felt insulted, though I knew it couldn't be helped. How could they be showing me this? Please, just shut off. Just die already. The demon's unabashed laughter continued as my hands squeezed the gray matter cradled by my now useless skull. My entire body convulsed at this pressure, and my vision wavered. Is this it? Could it finally be over? The demon chimed in with a hiss, again like the most vile serpent in a tranquil garden. Enjoy your darkness. With that, looking directly into my own eyes, covered in blood, tears, torn skin, and bile, I felt a jarring tug as my arms shot up and lifted my brain from its housing. The last thing I heard was my brainstem snapping from the force as it disconnected from my spine. Everything fell silent, and with the last second of my available vision, I watched my body collapse to the floor, fumbling over the sink on the way down. Time does not seem to exist here, in this darkness. I couldn't say how long it's been, minutes, days, or years. I no longer hold to human senses. Merely my consciousness, boundlessly submerged in this abject darkness. How long before I lose that? Will I be this conscious mind for eternity? Or am I going to lose myself to this maddening nothingness? I don't know, and I don't care. I wish I cared. I also wish you would stop laughing at me. What do you think the demon represents in the story? Is it a metaphor for something else? How did the use of the first-person perspective impact your connection to the protagonist's experience? If you were given the chance to bargain with the demon, what compromise would you propose? If you enjoyed this chilling tale, follow for more gripping stories and engaging content. Your journey into the unknown has just begun.